you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
Well, welcome to the show. Hi, everybody. How was your week? How you doing? What's going on?
How you doing?
How you doing? Johnny Million's with us at Johnny Million on the Twitter machine. And then, of course, it's Johnny Million on Twitch, twitch.tv/Hal Sparks, and twitch.tv/It's Johnny Million for all your infotainment needs, I suppose. But we're, and he and I are doing a test this afternoon to see if we can set up a co-playing rock thing between us,
Did you get your hardware?
My stuff's already hooked up. My stuff
Oh, you've
is
already got.
I'm already
you're
hardwired.
already like hardwired Ethernet.
Yes. Oh, of course. For this, yeah. I mean, I have
Listen,
for all the
more,
problems, I have had to solve in the last few years.
That's not one. Yeah.
No, Wi-Fi is not going to be one of the variables that I
Right.
throw into my mix, especially going forward, because I'm holding this up on the show, and so you won't be able to see it. Johnny Million, can you see this little device? You can describe it to the radio audience, perhaps.
Yeah, it looks like a shock collar that you put around Hal's neck to make sure that he doesn't roam away
All
too
right,
far while you're walking it.
don't talk out of school. That was our secret.
Say what it looks like, my man.
It's a Wi-Fi deauthorizer, and you can also spoof Wi-Fi with it, and you can also get people to log on to a fake Wi-Fi using a device like that. I have a special show coming up in the on my AI show where I'm introducing people to the devices that are in the world around them that they may not be aware of, and that's one of them. This is a little. If you ever see me wearing this thing out in public, don't ever sign on to the Starbucks Wi-Fi near you, because it ain't. So let's just be
terrifying.
Oh, it's very terrifying. It's just the beginning of it, my friend. So, but that's another story for another stream at another time in another place in another pair of pants. This has been one of those weeks where we vacillated between the sublime and the disgusting. There was so much kind of like fun, silly good news in terms of the DeSantis camp is just on a complete collapse.
You know what? If you want DeSantis to lose support, just put him on the TV.
That's right. It's amazing.
Just put him on and ask him an easy question.
Right, and he'll get mad about it because, by the way, for two reasons. One,
he will get indignant,
which is a good look.
Any question,
which is it's not snowflakey at all.
No.
when you start pearl clutching right out of the gate, it's I don't know. I mean, I've always been confused, and maybe we can settle some of this. But the right wing. There's some baffling corners of it. One of them is this like attachment to machismo. This idea that like they all see themselves as kind of frontiersmen with their hardy frontier wives who both can build a house but know their place. Yeah, right. And they're sort of perfect Christic children that never get drawn into the gay agenda, whatever that thing is. So they have this idea of they're like they live in a little mud house of their own making outside the Alamo, and they fought off the Mexican army all by themselves. And yet, the people they elect and the people they choose to follow are an entire contradiction to that mythology. Trump is a flatulent slob. He is he's physically always been in terrible shape. He has a terrible processed food diet. There's nothing about it. He eats well-done steak with ketchup on it like a child. And Hals
Secret is sending us a super chat to celebrate the Ron DeSantis crash and burn in front of the world.
Oh, it's help him, Rhonda. Help him. Ron, oh, thank you so much. Yes, the Ron, please contribute today to the Help Ron DeSantis Crash and Burn Fund. Our matching donor Hal Vickery has given us a gift. There's a consistency to it that I could almost let a couple of them, skate by in the background. If it was just Ted Cruz, who looks like a middle management guy who cosplays Wolverine, at bars outside of Comic-Con because he couldn't get a ticket, just kind of scam on comic book geek chicks, and who are underage, by the way. Like, this is the vibe. With the voice of George H.W. Bush, I kid you not, I don't know why there may be some sort of a Texas thing. Is it just because you have to speak over there's all sorts of low rumble going on there, and so everybody has this kind of pinchy high, redneck porch voice. What y'all doing down there? It reminds me, Ted Cruz has the same
redneck porch voice. I like.
You know what I'm talking. Well, do you ever play the game? Do you ever play the game Redneck Rampage?
No.
Oh, it's one of my favorite video games from back in the day. My dear friend Chris Bono and I used to while away the hours playing Redneck Rampage. Redneck Rampage is one of those like first-person shooters with crap graphics back in the day from the Doom engine. But your character was this super skinny, bald redneck who carried a giant revolver. It was basically a Magnum. It was unmarked. It was a big silver gun, right? And he only, because it was early programming, he only had a few lines he could say. Your character couldn't talk and have big bits of dialogue. And the idea was aliens were coming down to probe the rednecks and they were fighting back. It's a hilarious concept and it was really fun. And there were only two characters. The skinny guy who just says, "Get off my land." That's all he says. Your character, whenever he shoots, just goes, "Get off my land." And then there's a giant fat guy like the Lenny and of Mice and Men who just goes
rabbits.
Yeah, all he says is papaya. I don't know why it's papaya. I think it was just kind of gibberish, but he just papaya. That's all he says. And it was a fun game and we hung out with him. I don't know why, but that like nasally redneck voice has taken over Republican Southern politics.
That's not good.
Everywhere throughout Texas. It's super weird. And then, there are some folks where it makes sense that the Republicans clamor to them. You've got Jim Jordan, who used to be a high school wrestler, and he's so muscly he can't even fit a jacket on anymore. And,
the guy who can't hold his head still?
No, that's Paul Gosar. Paul Gosar is the guy who I think makes the best case that Pervitin is making the rounds in the Republican Party again. And I would say that if indeed some people have said he has Parkinson's and other stuff, he denies this. I would say that if he did, I would not make fun of that aspect of it.
No, of course not. Oh, wow. Colonel Klink is also donating to the Ron Crash and Burn Fund.
Oh, thank you.
Did you know that Colonel Klink watches your show?
I didn't. I know nothing about him watching. That's amazing. So Gosar's the guy who is constantly moving his head. And the only other answer, if he does not have some sort of physical malady, which he says he does not have, so we will take him at his word, is that he is cracked out of his brain on drugs. That's the only real reason, because it's not like a personality trait you would develop, right? You wouldn't go, "Oh, the chicks dig it when I waddle my head back and forth."
Thing. Oh wow, Carol Cobb is throwing down. Also,
Carol Cobb,
get off my land, guy.
Get off my land. Yeah. So, God, now I'm gonna have to.
Dale Dickey. That was the character actress, Dale Dickey.
Oh, in what?
That's they're apparently the vulnerable get off my land person.
Oh, well, wow. If they did the voice on that game, that's amazing as well.
Get off my land.
Get off my land. But the point I'm trying to make is that looking at the clamoring over Donald Trump, the second generation rich kid who crapped away his dad's business, who is, the mythology of him being a businessman is what skated him into the White House. And it is a myth. It is in no way true. at this point. It is just like anybody who still believes Donald Trump is a good businessman is selling it to themselves every time they say it, because you can't actually think that, except if you think being a tax cheat is being a great businessman. There are some that believe that, and that's clear. But this right now.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Some people are like really cool with him cheating on taxes.
Right, because they're
like, well, yeah, good for him if you can get away with it.
Well, you're getting them revenuers off my land. So who are the two biggest guys in the Republican world right now that everyone is saying, without these people, we can't survive? Without Trump, there is no MAGA. Without Tucker, there is no Fox. And the two of them, New York, second-generation rich kids who, you know, one of which wore a bow tie to work for a decade, only works because he wants to, because he's the heir to the Swanson frozen dinner fortune. And the only reason he hasn't blown it the way Trump did is because he chose not to get into that business at all. He knows his limitations. At the very least, Tucker knows he knows nothing about the business his family created. And yet, here they are, the stars of MAGA. Two second-generation rich kids who did nothing to create the wealth that seeded their entire existence, living on the illusion that they somehow know something special about politics or business, which they absolutely do not, because as we will show, Tucker's record, beyond the fact that he has been caught lying and they have to, so much so that they have to call his show entertainment to get out of defamation cases before, that he ended up costing the network he worked at 7 times his yearly salary in a single payout. And there's going to be another one. And then there's going to be another one. And another one. Yes, there's going to be. So we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hals Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million. These folks, maybe, why the dweeb thing, MAGA? Why? Why do you love dweebs so much? Explain. It's adorable.
Welcome back to the Hals Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back to the show. So we were talking a bit during the break about one of the other examples of the sort of right-wing hero sphere that's having a rough one. It's been a rough week for the messaging machine on the right, I have to say. Sorry, is there a audio issue some folks are saying?
It was about a 15-second audio glitch, and the messages came after it was already fixed.
Gotcha. Okay, good. All right. I thought so, but I'm just checking. So it may just be because there's we're louder than usual. So we'll see if we can fix that a bit. But so one of the other people that's had a rough ride of it this week was Steven Crowder. Now, Steven Crowder, if you don't know, and you shouldn't, because who cares? As I was telling Johnny during the break, to try to catch him up to speed, he was born in the wrong era. He should have been a mid-'80s shock jock around, a low-level man-cow, degree, I don't know, tier. Yes, a man-cow tier shock jock. That just says sleazy stuff and does sleazy things and stuff like that, and always skates at getting nearly kicked off the airwaves, that kind of stuff. And that's actually the sales point.
We got another giant super chat.
Oh dear, thank you.
Not a self-made millionaire. And he'll still send a super chat through.
Oh, that's amazing. You guys.
They're so nice.
Yes, people are chiming in on I get awful vibes off of Crowder. Yeah, and you're right too, because there was always something. First of all, the guy wears a gun at work. I think they're sponsored by Walter, the gun company, and so he wears a holster and has a gun in his holster all the time. And they work out of a warehouse park, an office park, right? Where they have their studio. Like, calm down. You're not in a demilitarized zone. Unless, of course, you know that they're, I guess, his staff are homicidal maniacs, which is entirely possible. So maybe he knows something about the people that work with him, and that's why he has to do it. Otherwise, it's ridiculous cosplay. But anyways, he's always kind of, been one of those dudes. But he does these, he's most known for these, there's only two genders, change my mind things, where he'll set up a card table on a college campus.
Is that him?
Yeah, that's him. That's Steven Crowder. And so he'll...
The meme guy?
Yes, he's the meme guy, right. But he does these long-form debates about stuff. And then most of the time what they do is they just show the slacktivist that comes up and starts getting mad. And, sometimes they show the whole form, whatever. I mean, I've never seen one where his argument is convincing genuinely. I only find that he goes to campuses where he knows that everybody will just get incendiary right away or upset right away or jump right to talking points right away, and he knows what's coming and he can mess with them. So it's a setup basically. So, but he's known for that. So a video came out this week of him berating his wife while she was 8 months pregnant, and I was saying on my live stream when we talked about it, because I didn't show it on the live stream, because I have to say, once I watched it, I was, Johnny Million, I've seen a bunch of stuff for this show, both, funny and enraging across the entire spectrum.
I can't imagine watching a fraction of what you have to watch.
And that's stuff I don't air. And then the Telegram stuff that I watch from the pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian battle stuff to keep up on what's going on there. It's some pretty brutal stuff. And I will get what I would call mini PTSD from some of these things, where I'll be walking around the house and some of these video pieces will pop into my head and aggravate, upset, or enrage me. That happens with a certain amount of regularity. And by the way, it happens to your favorite MSNBC television hosts all the time. So next time you see him, if you're in person, just go, thanks. I know when you're standing over you're washing a dish and you're like, you swear out loud. Yeah. That's why. Yeah. So the video comes out because he's in a divorce. And then he threatens to release his wife's mental health evaluation. Cool. Yeah, nice. Like like a man does.
Right. Yeah. Because it's all about how you look in the public eye when you're having a breakup.
That's right. And again, he's one of these guys who he works out fairly regularly. He's a buffer dude compared to, say, Ben Shapiro or some of these others. Mm-hmm. And he carries a gun. And so there's a little bit of that mythology. He's got the voice of Fred on Scooby-Doo, and you can't unhear that once I tell you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so if you hear Steven Crowder, he sounds exactly like Fred on Scooby-Doo, angry about something his wife did.
Does he wear an ascot?
No, he does not. And that's how you know the difference. It's the only way you would know the difference.
Thank you.
Yes. And height. Anyways, point being is that he's one of the guys that you think to some degree would fit the mold that he's actually more fitting of what MAGA thinks of themselves. He's like, he works out, he carries a gun, and he treats his wife like crap. It's like he's from Central Casting, as Trump always likes to say in that regard. And that's, by the way, that whole thing has been tearing, Candace Owens has been attacking him. He's been at war with the Daily Wire since they offered him a bunch of money to come over, and he read the contract offer that they gave him on the air. And there's just been back and forth. And I have to say, I don't get caught up in this, like in the YouTube. You've probably seen this, Johnny Million. You'll come across in YouTube world this interpersonal angry stuff that's like, it's videos back and forth between YouTubers or between Twitch people that's like the Real Housewives yelling across a table, but done in 7-minute video essays about each other. Oh. And it is such a glorious waste of time. I have no interest whatsoever. And when they turn to that, you can tell that their argument and the rest of what they do not going so well.
Oh.
And that's exactly what's happening. So the Daily Wire and Candace Owens are attacking him. And at the same time, we've got the Trump-DeSantis battle going on. Asa Hutchinson and I believe Tim Scott is, he just did an exploratory committee. So there are people jumping on board to be in the primary on the Republican side, mainly because they're jockeying to be Pence's replacement. Because there's obviously no comeback there. So people are going to try and jockey because Trump will pick on popularity. He will not pick on worth. He will not. Right. He'll just whoever ranks the highest below his number one competitor. So if he's got a number one competitor, they're off the list. They are to be violently attacked. That's what's happening to DeSantis, and that's what will continue to happen to DeSantis just in case he starts to bump up again. But he's awful, and he's never going to make it, and all he'll do is chip away a big chunk of...
How can DeSantis recover? It's like his policies, he is past the worst things that he'll be like legitimately able to pass. And
he has to do it in the middle of the night because he's not even that popular.
In person.
Right. You know what? I got to say, not my problem, not our problem. I'm not here to work out how the Republicans will pick the next second best awful person to try and give Trump a run for his money during this next round. I'm just going to eat popcorn and watch because I am stunned. And again, look at DeSantis, a great example of a dude who certainly doesn't scream, manly man Lou Ferrigno. And again, these aren't my limitations I'm putting on what it is to be a man or any of those things. As Johnny and I, as Kiss fans, know, we have a wide variety of male expression that constitutes manliness as far as I'm concerned, including all of Paul Stanley's outfits over the years. So calm down to everybody else who tells us that we're just discovering the flexibility of gender for Gen Xers. We're way ahead of you. But in terms of the right, they have very distinct roles, very distinct limits on what that behavior scope is, and they never live up to it. It's bizarre. It is so consistent. And again, because Tucker, one of the things you could say about him over everything else is that he is an absolute dweeb. There, no question, just a whingy, pedantic, weaselly dweeb. Like, even with all of his, testicle tanning and weightlifting and red meat and testosterone storylines, none of it seems to be paying off. It's a terrible... It's like Alex Jones's penis pills. Apparently, they don't work, except they make you bloated and make you look like a rotting mango that's about to explode. We got to come back after this. We'll take a break. It's the Hals Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Welcome back. It's sometimes we just work it out. It's just what we do. That said, if I may, I think I may have solved one of the other issues on it. This is an interesting part of, I guess, MAGA world over the next, I suppose, maybe 3-6 months. I don't know how long this is going to last before everybody just, decides that, I don't know. Is that Trump, all right, we just have to shrug it off and go with it. We really don't have a choice. So let's just do it. And that seems to be where some of the donors are currently. But quite frankly, he's going to lose. And they know this. They know it. They're aware that they're going to lose. And quite frankly, some of them seemed resigned to it, like it's chemo or something. Like they just have to go through it to kill the infection in that regard in their party, right?
Horrible.
So but I mean that's how they're looking at it. They're like, well, all right, we're just done. That's all you can do with it, and there's no way around it, and yada yada. And I find it. Sorry, I'm gonna do this real quick. Blink.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you're okay.
I'm back.
Yeah. And now I can hear Chicago without any problems. Oh, there they are. Hold on 1 second. Now you can see you. Okay, sorry, you were behind a desktop for a second. It was I'd sent you back to the 90s. So this is the conundrum that they're in on the Republican side right now, is that they're so all in on Trump because you have to be.
Yeah.
You can't be. Yeah, you can't be halfway with somebody like Trump, because if you even have a moment to think about it, you'll realize it's ridiculous. That's, by the way, the same way they feel about Tucker to some degree, is if you stop and think for a second and go, wait a minute, this guy's just a rich kid who got a television show because his dad knows the guy who owns the network and is willing to just be kind of a whingy and argue on behalf of our tax bracket.
Anything for a price.
Yeah. And has for years. And the minute you start thinking about that, it all falls apart. So it requires, both of them require a cultish, sort of almost mystical belief system. And it's interesting because like before the show, I was watching this thing about the record, Forbes's record of picking criminals. So Forbes, does their 30 under 30 to watch and their top 100 list and the like. And there was this running gag for a while, especially in the tech and crypto sector, that if you show up on a Forbes list and they say you're great, that you should immediately shop for an attorney and a country with no extradition treaty with the United States, because that's officially the target is on your back. Because because they pick from Theranos to Martin Skrillex to the guy who just MBS, not MBS, whoever it is, the nerdy crypto dude who went to jail. He goes by 3 initials, who stole $1 billion from people. Like those are his entire upper board, who was engaged in the shuffle money scheme that was going on there and defrauding investors hand over fist. They were all in the 30 under 30 thing, and everyone was just marveling at them. Well, the Forbes cut their teeth on BSing the world about people's business acumen and their wealth on Donald Trump. It should be the story that Trump was able to pretend to be his own PR agent and call Forbes and manage to BS his way onto the list of the top 100 billionaires or whatever, the Forbes 400 or whatever, for years, should tell you everything you need to know about taking that kind of media seriously. It makes no sense to trust the judgment of a magazine or an editorial staff that's been that wrong that much. Same thing applies to Tucker Carlson. So, he's made the same predictions that convicted pedophile and recurring guest on Judge Napolitano's podcast, Scott Ritter, former weapons inspector who lived in Russia for 6 years, and apparently they got so much compromise on this dude because of his proclivity towards trying to sleep with children that he now defends them no matter how stupid it makes him look. Because the minute he stops, I guess it all comes out. That's got to be the only reason. Or they're promising him something awful if they win and he's helping them do it. That's the other possibility. But he's saying and has said the exact same thing that Tucker and Marjorie Taylor Greene are saying. And over again, they've been wrong. Again and again and again. Just wrong constantly. And yet, these are the people that get a cult-like following on the right. And again, I think it's because there's almost like a tipping point where at some point you peak the meter on being so wrong that they're now just defending your philosophy so much that they can't allow any criticism. And that's where Trump finds himself. Like, his record is so terrible and absurd.
You can't concede any point.
Right, because the minute you do, it all falls down. And that's where he finds himself, is DeSantis really gonna, interrupt the flow of Trump becoming the main candidate? Maybe not. Jail might. But so DeSantis is kind of like stupidly and awkwardly biding his time, as other people are doing, because they're, you can tell when the Asa Hutchinsons of the world, when they start coming in, it's largely because they've seen the evidence. They're in a situation where because they're in the Senate, he and Tim Scott have had a chance to peruse the evidence against Donald Trump. And it seems like they're kind of convinced that it ain't going to be DeSantis because he's a nudge, and it ain't going to be Trump because he's going to be in worse shape than he is during his rape trial this week going forward. And so they're just waiting until he drops out or falls apart, and then they can run in and be sort of a sense of reason. And, I'm not just crazy, but I am a dyed-in-the-wool Republican. I am truly conservative, and I might not say all the things that Trump would say, but wink, nod, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm going to do it once I get in there. Because every success that Trump had during his presidency that he brags about that was genuine in terms of a Republican agenda came from Mitch McConnell. From packing the court with their own people to the tax cut, all that stuff was just ready for the next Republican to rubber stamp it. It had nothing to do with it. He didn't go through a pile of possible candidates. He didn't, attack the tax code from a former businessman's perspective, and he wanted entertainment deductions to be added back in for wining and dining people and taking them to strip clubs and golf courses, because that's what he remembers from the 80s. Chump change on the scale that most people are talking about, and certainly in terms of the size of the tax cut that they were giving to corporations that Mitch McConnell teed up for him. Just like petty, small, his own personal gripe. Had nothing to do with the actual tax code in any meaningful way, and certainly nothing to do with that tax code. That was 100% Mitch McConnell and the other Republicans drafting this thing for him. And him turning on them is just, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, there will not be enough popcorn for 2023. And these guys are going to eat each other alive, just like the right-wing media sphere is. And Trump himself runs on this myth. And it is falling apart so quickly that he's actually doing the Iowa level grand, regular politicking, eating pieces of pizza and doing the hangout thing with smaller and smaller groups, like he's, Howard Dean, literally having to make the hump in New Hampshire and Iowa and all these. He is acting like a seventh tier candidate. And there's only one reason. Well, there's two reasons. There's two reasons why he's doing that. One is he does not have a lock on this, and that the majority, even though he has the highest rating amongst the Republicans that have announced or that are running, which doesn't include DeSantis, and DeSantis isn't, in shooting distance, even though he hasn't officially announced. Trump used to be the president, and he's not even half of the Republican Party has signed on to him. They should automatically go, yeah, he's the guy. Of the people running, he's my dude. But they're not.
Right.
Some of them are saying people who haven't even said they're going to run yet, and some of them are not saying anybody at all, even of the people that have announced and that haven't announced, that are toying with it. They're not even picking that person. That's over half of the Republican Party. That's not the general electorate. Trump is having to do, regular, on the ground, baby kissing type of politicking. And the only reason for that is because he knows they're looking at the numbers. His people are looking at the numbers. They know also that he likes being He likes the ego boost of being surrounded by sycophants. So they take him to places where he's already got it locked or he already had it locked. So he can go, this has always been great to us. We won very handily. That's the only places they're going to send him because he needs the ego boost. And the other reason is he needs the money. This is yet another scheme for him to bleed his supporters dry. This is more of a televangelist tent revival tour than it is a presidential campaign. And the reality is these people are going to be tapped out by the time the real campaign comes around. Because these are people who are being helped by Joe Biden's policies more than, any of the last 5 presidencies probably, especially around union jobs and infrastructure work. And yet they have thrown their fealty behind Donald Trump because they're afraid of the trans, or they're afraid that, there's going to be a crime wave of militant black people shooting up their neighborhoods or whatever panic attack they're being fed. So much so that they got to back Trump even when he's wrong right to their face. But they only got so much. That well is not very deep. And it's a bit cruel to watch him do this to his supporters. Again, they're grown people. They'll make their own stupid decisions. But his retail politics right now are so low rung compared to what he got in 2015 and 2016. This should scare the living daylights out of him every single day. And the lack of people that showed up when he was at court. This is a dwindling, and the slow grind watching this go down is spectacular. His rally, or if you want to call it that, in New Hampshire, where he's like, there are thousands, thanks to the fire marshals, because there's thousands of people outside waiting to get in. No.
Can you imagine, there weren't. Like, never being able to have a quiet mind because you've just developed this nest of awfulness around you?
Oh, yeah. And this is where Putin finds himself. It's largely where Xi Jinping finds himself. And I'm sure Kim Jong-un to some degree, except Kim Jong-un can just murder people outright. He doesn't even have to pretend to push them out a window, which I think is part of Putin's stress. But it's the same way. There is a special kind of panic, I think, that comes from a ferociously low self-esteem, a collapsing self-esteem, a belief that you have no worth, that you're an idiot, and you've managed to flim-flam a bunch of people into believing you have skills, into believing you're smart, but you're not. You're in way over your head. And there are only two kinds of people around you at that level. There are people who follow you around, who are your sycophantic believers, who you must have total disdain for, because if they think I'm smart, they must be morons, because you can't not think that about them. That's everybody who has, lame followers like that they don't respect. The reasoning is because they have low self-esteem. They can't believe. It's the same way Trump feels about women, because any woman who'd be stupid enough to sleep with him must be, of low quality. So every woman he's even attracted to, who slept with him because of his money or because, of position, or maybe even because they were attracted, he thinks they're insane or greedy or just waiting till he dies. So that's a nice source of constant buzzing anxiety. It's a beehive of anxiety around your relationships. It also goes out to all the sycophants, the Corey Lewandowskis and people like that who are around him, the Jason Millers. But then there's also the people who are blowing smoke because they're smart and they've made a bunch of money. The Wilbur Rosses of the world, to some degree, even Steve Bannon, perhaps even Paul Manafort, that scares the living daylights out of him. Because like Putin's inner circle, if he hasn't eliminated anybody with a brain, as soon as they get their shot, they're coming. It's a scary notion. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. And that's where he lives all the time. It's why he wakes up at 2:30 in the morning to scream in all caps on Troth Central. And he's earned it.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So we have been watching, and this is going to be an ongoing debate all during this campaign. I have no doubt. Johnny Million and I were talking about this a little bit during the break about whether Trump is a narcissist or not, and people have been back and forth about this. And Johnny brought up something really smart, which is that well, it's news. No. That narcissist, that a true narcissist can, operates in the shadows like Rasputin or Machiavelli, where they, or Ted Bundy, right? They view themselves as puppet masters who, they rub elbows with all the rich people and they kind of manipulate them emotionally, and that they can feign weakness when necessary to make the leader that they are taking power from or borrowing power from think that they're not a threat and that they are, I guess, safe to be around, right? And Trump can never do that. He's incapable. It is not possible for Donald Trump to feign weakness in any way.
No, he can't. He can't.
No. Which is
like
because it's not a joke.
His ego won't allow that manipulation technique through, where it would serve him, and he still won't allow it.
Exactly. Because it can't, because you can't let anybody in, because the minute they see, they'll realize I'm actually weak. That's the fear. And so that can't be narcissism. That is low self-esteem. That is pathological low self-esteem. Okay. And he is inflicting it. He's inflicting it on the world. And I think the gold furniture is a great example. Like, right?
But it looks so good, and it's so functional.
Isn't it? And it's comfortable.
And the resale value.
Oh, it's nice. Yeah. You can always loan it to your own library. So I stand by this. We're going to be back and forth, and people will. The clinical definition of narcissistic personality, whatever. I don't care. From a true narcissist, trust me when I say.
Somebody mentioned this. I'm sorry, Dragon X Flyer in the chat said that your HSRPM looks like you've got a sales tag on your head. Oh, right. That's sweet. Yeah, it's poking me. It points to the left. I thought that was kind of... I like it. Yeah. Anyway. Anyways, so, and yet it's made out of metal. Narcissists decompensate, according to Kath. I don't... maybe they do, but... in this particular case, I don't think so. Again, I think Trump hates his own reflection. You just know it. You just know it. That'd be the only thing we agree on. That, he knows he can take it. It's why he palled around with Jeffrey Epstein. It's why he liked those kind of parties, because he could take advantage. These women are already teed up. They're there because the money is there. He doesn't even have to, emotionally connect with anybody if he even could, because these women showed up to the party because this is a money situation. So you can just sleep with them because they're basically prepaid prostitutes in his mind. That's what it's obvious. That's how he thinks about them. And, in that clip of him dancing and whispering with Jeffrey Epstein, that's what's going on. And the issue, again, is when you have a veneer that delicate, you can't kick the tires on that lemon. You cannot do it, because they will pop, because the car you won't even get in it and roll it off the lot. And the first time he ran, he could count on the idea that, people they bought the BS story from The Apprentice. This time around, people know better. This time around, the Mexico's, everything that he proposes next time around is going to have hashtag Mexico will pay for it on the tail end of it, including his like. Doesn't it seem more like he's going to be putting all of the energy into reconvincing the people that voted for him before, rather than trying to get new people in? Yes. And the fact that he has to do that is a terrible sign. That is for somebody who was touting his movement. There's never been a movement like MAGA ever in the movements of movements, and all the movements that MAGA, their giant movement, is the movement of all movements, and it moved everybody and they moved on. Yeah, that's the movement. That's the MAGA movement.
to have to throw a hard sell like that this late in the game, after you lost last time, in the middle of, by the way, your rape trial. I mean, those two words alone, if there's a sickness in our politic, it's because...
How, when you were going through your rape trial...
Doesn't everybody have one?
Your life?
Oh, my God. Like...
Nobody says that. Nobody has this in their life.
No. And if they do, they're not a topic of conversation around anybody else's rights or privileges. You don't talk about something, well, since his rape trial, I think he's really turned things around and become I think it'd be a great comptroller for Illinois. You know what I mean? Like, there's no point where you're like, sure. It's very obviously he's a disgusting pig, but you can't argue with him his knowledge of sewage treatment plants and water systems. Like, no, how about we'll find somebody else? Thank you, thanks. No. Go start your own business, knock yourself out. But in the public sector where other people rely on you to show up for your job and care about it, I don't need you in food inspection, buddy. Much less near the button. And so, and by the way, DeSantis, as much as he's cadavering his campaign, is eating crap and he's just embarrassing himself. Understand, you and I think that Republicans, being petulant dweebs is off-putting and not a sign of leadership, right? But apparently maggots don't, because if you'll recall, all Trump does all the time is scream into the wind about every possible slight against him. So why do they think DeSantis's petulant, whingy ramblings will affect long-term affect his vote? If he just keeps signing the right legislation...
How bad does the Disney thing look? Like, whatever the details are, it just looks bad.
The irony is that lost him more Republican votes than anybody else because, and again, this goes to the classic conservatism idea. And Philip Ittner is going to be joining us. We're going to talk about Ukraine coming up because the spring offensive seems to be ramping up right now. And there's a lot going on over there. And we'll be taking questions from the chat room as well. So you can prep those as well. But I want to be abundantly clear. As long as he keeps signing bills, that seem to fight the culture war, they seem okay with it. But there's one line that Republicans always seem to worry about crossing, which is the government's control over corporations. And they've been back and forth about it over Twitter and other stuff. But when it comes to this Disney thing, the idea that he would be president and be able to do this to any company that he finds slights him as president and then gives that power to the next president, which anybody who thinks ahead is aware is a possibility, scares the living daylights out of Republicans. It's ironic. At least they know when Trump says it, he's going to fail. He won't do it. He'll give up because he's a loser. He's always been a loser. We'll be back right after this.